Hello everyone, this is Direwolf20, and welcome to episode 20 of Direwolf20's Let's Play series. I love that episode number, it's one of my favorites. Hey, I just got back from the Nether, where I got myself a bunch more Nether quartz, and obviously a bunch of other random miscellaneous Nether type drops. The main reason for which is I have decided that it's time to improve our storage options just a little bit. And for that, we're going to be taking a look today at refined storage, as you can probably guess, based on the fact that it's already up in JEI for me. It's about time we start looking at getting some better storage options, and we're going to start off basically by playing around with refined storage, getting the basic foundation up and running. And once we have that, we can probably get into some reborn storage, which is a pretty cool, nifty place that has a bunch of cool other stuff. So, without further ado, let's get started taking a look at refined storage, because I'd like to store my stuff a little better than I have been. We've had like a pretty good sorting system that hasn't, done a poor job at all. It's done a rather decent job. And we've got our servos and we've got our filters routing stuff around, and it's just fine. It's not terrible. But refined storage opens up a lot of opportunities for storing items and for automation, which should be really cool. So let's get started with that. The main resource that we're going to want to get started with is probably going to be this stuff. You and you and you and you. Give me quartz enriched iron. That should be a decent amount, 2 stacks or so, if I'm right. Yeah, nice. Quartz enriched iron is used for pretty much everything in refined and also, I guess, in reborn storage. It's the main resource component of refined storage, and we're going to need it to get the basics up and running. Now, refined storage also needs power, and a decent amount of it as well. So my suspicion is we're going to start getting power up and running with this thing, and at some point soon we're going to start needing more power gen. So we'll probably get started with better storage, and then quickly need to get into better power gen to maintain the power needed to keep our storage up and running. At the beginning, it seems like refined storage doesn't use a lot of power, but it quickly gets to the point where it's using quite a bit. Since this is the basement of my storage room, I suspect that it's probably the best place to start building a refined storage central processing area. So like, we'll have the brains of the refined storage system in the basement. We'll eventually clear away all these storage crates, but I'd like to leave the storage drawers in place, and I'd eventually like to tap into the storage drawers that are over there, as well as some of the mob drops that are over there. So we'll basically convert this storage room, instead of storage drawers and crates, it will become a storage drawers only area, where it'll store just basically a bunch of resources in storage drawers that we want to have a lot of, and then everything else can live in our refined storage system. That sound like a plan? I hope so, because that's pretty much what we're doing. And there's all kinds of other cool stuff that we can play with and do things with. So we'll definitely have fun with some of the new features of refined storage, because there's a lot of stuff that has been added since I last played with the mod. So yeah, definitely some cool things to take a look at. Wow, look at all this neat stuff. Yeah, there's some stuff and some things. All right, so to get started, the main thing we're going to need is a controller, which is kind of the brains of the operation. And we're also going to need some cabling, which is going to need some glass and some redstone. That shouldn't be too bad. And then a solderer, which is going to need some sticky pistons. So, sticky pistons, not a problem. I've got some slime around here somewhere. If it's not in there, it might be in here. Oh yeah, look at that, congealed slime block. Neat. So we'll get some, we're going to want some redstone, a decent amount of that. We might need some glowstone. We're totally going to need some iron and some gold. And that's probably pretty good to get us started. We're also going to need a few diamonds. Luckily, my mining expeditions has gotten me some of that. I don't know if we need ender pearls yet, but we'll see. That should be a good starting point for what we need. The other thing we're going to need a decent amount of, and for now I'm going to get about half a stack of it, is silicon. The best approach to getting silicon is simply smelting nether quartz. So there's other kinds of silicon, by the way. You can get silicon by smelting Certus quartz dust. That's another option for you, which you can get by grinding up Certus quartz, obviously, in a pulverizer. But for now, we'll stick with the smelting of the nether quartz one, because nether quartz is a little bit easier to come by than Certus quartz. So with that up and running, we should now be able to make, from refined storage, a machine casing. This looks like some kind of smooth stone needs to be had. So let's get ourselves one of these dudes. Cool. And then we can get one of these guys. Cool. The controller is ready to roll. I'm going to want some power. So we might need some more leadstone flux ducts. So let's get about, a handful of those, and we should have a little bit of glass ready to go, just so I can run power over there. Cool. So let's have the brains of the operation. So we've got power running over here already, right? Neat. And we've got, okay, so here's where we tap into that like line thingy that we've got going on here. So that's not terrible. So how and where do I want to have... So unlike Applied Energistics, which is the last mod that I use that's similar to this, you should probably be smooth cobblestone or something. There you are. Unlike Applied Energistics, the location of the controller isn't that important because there's no channels. So if you watched my most recent series, Age of Engineering, you saw me playing with Applied Energistics. Refined storage is very much like that, in that you can store stuff and things. And if you like Applied Energistics, that is also in the pack. So the concept with the Direwolf 20 pack is play how you want and learn the mods, right? Those are the two main premises of the Direwolf 20 pack. Learn how to play with mods if you've never played with them before, but if you are a fan of playing with them, you get to play however you want. So I put both Refined Storage and Applied Energistics in the pack, even though they're very similar mods, because they have a different play style. They both accomplish the same goal in that they're a giant item storage system with lots of automation and auto crafting. However, Refined Storage takes a different approach than Applied Energistics. And since I did Applied Energistics in my most recent Age of Engineering series, I decided to do Refined Storage in this series. So if you like Applied Energistics, cool, by all means use it. And if you like Refined Storage, cool, by all means use it. Have fun, either way. So it's not super important where we place the controller. It's not like Applied Energistics where you want to have it kind of centered in a room. So it's not that big a deal. But we are going to want to run lots of cabling around to access this stuff. So we'll probably want a grid system either in this room or in the central room. So how should I go about getting that up and running is kind of the question. Let's go ahead and start off with the controller being right maybe here. We'll stick it inside the room, right? And then you can see it powering up there. When it's flashing red, it means it's low on power. So it just took a moment for it to collect the power it needs. And now it's good. And we're currently using 0 forge energy or 0 RF per tick. It has an internal buffer of around 28,000. So as we connect more and more machines to this thing, it'll start using more power. The next guy that we're going to want to get down here is the solderer. That's going to be used for, a handful of things. So let's get ourselves a couple of pistons. Let's do, I don't know how many solderers we're going to want. Let's start with 4, or 4 pistons, aka 2 solderers, and then we will see how things go. Does that sound fair? Stop putting stuff in there, you stinker. I gotta figure that out. Oh hey, I got an advancement. Soldering. Woot. So because I have my solderers now, I got that achievement. And let's go ahead and put them downstairs. The other thing I'm gonna want is probably some cables from Refined Storage. So that would be these guys, Refined Storage cables. Let's get that many of them. That should be fine. I have a suspicion that I'm gonna need more glass. So I'm gonna go smelt that up real quick. There we go. And while that's smelting, we can play with cabling a little bit. Now, refined storage machines will always connect to and automatically power adjacent machines, so we don't need to run cables to these guys. They should automatically get power from the controller. So the controller powers this guy powers that guy. So we shouldn't need to run cables to them. A few things we're going to need. Let's get about 8 of them to start. Nice, it's working, cool. And we might need a few of these as well. So that should be cool. Improved processors. And we're also going to need printed silicon. So we'll want a few of those. So the next step in refined storage, there's basically 2 things that we have to get started with. The first is item storage. So disk drives are usually the best approach to get started with item storage. They're going to allow us to insert storage disks that can hold 1,000 or 4,000 or 16,000 or 64,000 items. There's also a creative one that's uncraftable, obviously. So 1, 4, 16, and 64,000 items. And basically the 1K storage disk costs that, and the 4K storage disk costs a 4K part, which needs 3 1K parts. So basically, upgrading your storage disks is totally worth doing, but it starts to get expensive as you go down the line. And then the other thing we're going to need is grids. Grids are how you access the items inside the disks. So disks go into disk drives. The disks are what actually store the items. And then the grid is what allows you to interact with the items that are stored on the disks and either put items into the system or get them out. So we're going to need a few of these things to get started here. We're definitely going to want some printed silicon. So I'm going to stick 16 of those in there and let them start cooking. Let's start off with a disk drive. So for that, we're going to need, what, a shulker box? What? Accepts any chest. Oh, okay, any chest. I was going to say, like, did he make it require shulker boxes? That's a weird disconnect from what I'm familiar with the mod. No, he did not. It is just, it accepts any chest. Cool. So we'll get the disk drive first. So that shouldn't be too bad. And then we're going to also need an advanced processor, which is one of the printed advanced processors, which I just got from putting a diamond into the solderer. Oh, you can do blocks at a time in solderers now? Well, that's cool. Looks like it's slower, but it's still cool that you can do it. It's going to also require some printed silicon, which I'm making down there, and some redstone. So here's the thing about these little doohickeys. They are only used to make the processor version of themselves. So there's no reason to hang on to the unprocessed version. So I'll just go ahead and throw this in here with a bunch of printed silicon. Cool. And then this can go in here with these 8, and those 8. Cool, and that'll get us the components that we need to really get going. The other thing we're going to need to do is throw some iron into these guys as well. There's, by the way, speed upgrades that we'll get at some point that will totally make these solderers run a little bit quicker. But there's an iron version of these as well. So basically, there's a gold version, a basic processor, which is made from iron, and the diamond version. So iron, gold, and diamond are your 3 tiers of processor, which are really just crafting components at the end of the day. So that's right. I went down there to get something specific, and then I forgot to grab it. So you're cooking up these guys. Cool. I'd like to throw some iron in there in a minute. As soon as this one last process is done, this will take a few minutes to process the rest of these. But at least I'll have the base components to make more stuff. So that's diamond and that's gold. They do take a while, don't they? Goodness gracious. There you go. Let's get about 16, because iron's pretty common. We'll get a bunch of those and let them process while we're crafting disk drives and other things. So I should be able to make a disk drive now. That's what's going to store the items on the storage disk. Neat. Now to get a 1K storage part, we're going to need some quartz-enriched iron, some redstone, and silicon. That's not bad at all. So let's totally do that. I'm missing glass. Yay, drives. So I should be able to make a 1K storage part. Check. And you know what I might want to do? Let's get 2 more of those and bump it up to a 4K. Like, let's just go for broke. For that, we're going to need 4 basic processors. So if you do the math on this, it takes 3 1K drives to get a 4K drive. So by doing that upgrade, you wind up with a free extra 1,000 items to be stored. So a 4K drive is a pretty good early game approach. Put 4 in there. Put 4 in there. And we're going to need some more silicon, so I might as well, do something about that shortly. Probably smelt up more quartz. So it's definitely worth doing the 4K storage disk. It requires 4 basic processors, obviously, but that eventually turns into a 4K, so you can store 4,000 items. So we'll start with a 4K. We might wind up making a couple more 4Ks, and then we'll proceed down the line and later on into the series, we'll get into the 16 and 64K storage discs, which start getting progressively more expensive. Those require some gold, and these require some diamonds. Not terribly expensive, but, you know, it's probably a little bit outside the range of what we can afford right now. Cool? Okay, so you're all good, and this is the 4th basic processor that we're going to want. Come on, buddy. Looking forward to speed upgrades already. So these guys can be turned into a 4K storage part, which then can be added to a storage housing, which can then become a 4K disk drive. Neat. So at this point in the game, we have the ability to store exactly 4,000 items of any type in this system. As soon as I find out where that 4K disk drive thingy went. Where did you go? Am I crazy, or am I not seeing it in my inventory here? Did I drop it on the ground or something? Oh, there it is. Hello. I must have dropped it on the ground. Weird. Cool. So now you can see over here, 0 out of 4K. There's a bunch of stuff on the side here, which we will talk about a little bit. You can toggle the blocks on and off with redstone signal, whether or not they store items or fluids, because there's native fluid support in this mod. Whether you can specify what items are allowed to be in here, and it's a whitelist or blacklist. And if it's empty, then it's just anything's allowed in. And in the whitelist or blacklist mode, you can specify whether it compares damage, otherwise known as metadata, NBT, compares ore dictionary, whether or not it automatically voids excess items and fluids, which is a really cool setting, by the way. And then whether or not you're allowed to insert and extract items from this disk drive, or insert only, extract only, or both, right? You can also specify a priority, which we'll play with a little bit later, too. So all those features come together to make a really nice item storage system. Love and refined storage. So the next thing we're going to probably want to get is a grid. In order to get that, we're going to need some improved processors, which we already made. We're also going to need construction and destruction cores, which is an upgrade to the basic processor. So knowing that, let's get ourselves another half a stack of silicon, because we're totally going to need more silicon smelted up. You please give me some more silicon. We'll get like a dozen. Does that sound like a good start? And then we'll go from there. All right, so you get cooking on more silicon for me. We'll just do all 12 in there. And then silicon, redstone, and printed circuits will kind of be a good 2 and 2. Nice. So that'll get me a grid. And then we want to upgrade that to a crafting grid. And I'll show you what the difference is in a minute. Let's figure out where we want our grid to live while that's cooking. So definitely a lot of options here for like where our grid can exist. We could stick it like here. Might not be a terrible place. That might be a cool place for a grid, right? So right there in the wall. Or it could really be like in the center of this room, wherever really. It's kind of the nice thing about refined storage is you can kind of stick it wherever. Inside here might be a cool place. Like, I kind of like sometimes having it in the middle between 2 rooms. That could be cool. Let's consider it being here. That might be a good spot for it. And we'll run this guy down. So these are your cables from refined storage, which will basically run up from our controller or any other block, honestly. So for now, I'm going to have them in addition to the item conduit system that I have for sorting, but eventually we're going to remove the item conduit system and we can clean up this wiring a little bit. So with these 2 things done now, let's get about 5 more of these cooking. 5 more of those iron circuit board thingies. You know what? Let's get a few more pieces of silicon cooking as well. 11 sounds good. So for crafting the grid, we're going to need a construction core. We're going to need a destruction core, which needs a piece of quartz. Just 1. Let's put away... I don't need power stuff at the moment, or wood. probably don't really need my slingshot. Inventory issues, as always. And this torch as well can go. Okay. The quartz that I need. So the grid requires a destruction core. And then another one of these dudes. And again, any glass, pretty much. Cool. So grid's neat. We pop it down, and now we have access to our storage system. So any items I place in here, like the glass, take up some slots. Oh, that's cool. Last modified just now. He added the last modified bit. So I can just drop a bunch of items in there. Easy peasy, right? So we've got a bunch of items in there. That is cool. And if we pop downstairs, we'll see that they're all taking up space inside the storage disk. So this storage disk is using 336 out of the 4,000 storage units available. And the total amount of all the disks in this disk drive is pretty much the same. So if we added another 4K drive here, we'd see 336 out of 8K, and this is 4K and this is 4K. Makes sense? Which we will probably do before the end of the episode. We'll see. Now, if we're covering this up, that's a question. I wonder if covers can work. I don't know. It would be cool if they did. It would be really cool if they did. So we have structured ducts, and we have oak plank covers from thermal. Man, I really, really want this to work, but I don't think it's gonna. Yeah, no, it doesn't. That would be super amazing and cool if it did. So I think I can do it with chisel blocks and make a cover. That might work. We'll have to play with it a little bit. I'm gonna have to figure out covers as soon as I'm finished really working on this. But I don't want to actually have the grid. Now remember, the items are stored in the drives down there. So when I break this grid, it's okay. I just don't have access to those items anymore, right? The items are still there. They're not stored in the grid. They're stored downstairs. Cool. What I want to do is upgrade this grid using some wood. Might have made its way into here. We do want a crafting table, so that's cool. So actually, I don't need the wood anymore. I think it's a solderer recipe, though. So we have to solder this thing. So you're done. So you, and the grid? Right? To make it crafting grid? Crafting table, advanced processor grid. Advanced processor. Oh, good. It is working. Cool. Okay, so that will get us a crafting grid, which works just like a grid, except it has a crafting table built in, so we can craft with it. And that is pretty much the bee's knees. Meanwhile, I have to figure out how I'm going to make cover. Because I know I can probably do it with chiseled blocks, but we'll see. Okay, so with this thing up and running and ready to go, upgrading your grid. Sweet. Crafting grid go. We now have a grid with a bunch of stuff in it, and we can now craft in it. How cool is that? I love it. So if I want to craft something, like say I wanted to make a refined storage base block here, I can just boop, and it'll take the items out of the grid, out of the item storage, and we can craft it right away. And X there to clear it, and it puts the items back in. Super cool. Loving it. All right, so that is step one. There's a couple other options for the grid here. Same thing with redstone mode. Normal detailed, no craftables detailed, normal. So that takes away that how many we have and who last accessed it. So that's kind of cool. Wow. I don't think I care about those details, so I'm going to put it on normal mode without details. Display no craftables, normal, yeah. Sorting direction, that's fine. Sorting type quantity, normal, JEI synchronized. That's what we're going to want, is JEI synchronized. JEI synchronized is cool because anything I type in here synchronizes with JEI. So if I want to look up how to make a chest, boom, I don't have any chests, I can just do that, and boom, if I had wood in the system, it would go in there. Cool. Size is stretch, small, medium, large. I'll just leave it like that. That sounds pretty good to me. There's also some filters and stuff we can do. We'll play with that later. So let's try Chisel and Bits to try and cover this up, because I wouldn't mind having a little bit of a cover here. So for this to work, we're going to need some kind of chisel, be it iron, gold, or diamond. I guess I'll just do iron. It doesn't hurt. Iron chisel. Boom. Easy peasy. And then Chisel and Bits is cool. It lets you basically, using this mod, you can remove individual bits from a block. So you notice how this is a piece of cobblestone? I can just left click and boom. We just did that. Cool. Mod options, no options, controls. Chisel and Bits. Do you have a section in here? I would think that you do. There we go. There should be an option for undo. I want to bind that to you. Does that sound cool? Okay. And redo. Can you be Y? Does that sound cool? Right. So if I want to undo it, I can hit U and it undoes everything I did. Neat. That is fancy stuff. You can also hold Alt to bring up this thing. So instead of breaking a single bit at a time, you could break a whole line, a whole plane, a connected plane, and there's lots of other crazy stuff that you can do. If I want to break a plane and left click, that'll remove a whole bunch of bits, right? It basically, a pane is 4 stacks or 256, yeah, little bits. Nifty. If that becomes, I'm going to undo that, a hassle, there's a bit bag that just needs wool, which I don't really have that much of. How about string? Not as much as I might need. Do I have string out here? I've got some string. I've got some more string. Thank you, buddy. The bit bag can hold. So what we're going to need is to left click that pane. Cool. And then the bit bag requires 1 bit. And then this thing can hold all your bits in large, large, large quantities. So now if I want to chisel this whole thing up, boom, we ate up that entire block. We filled up maybe a little bit of the bag, and we have 4,031 bits of cobblestone. Good times. So bit bags are neat. Definitely would recommend getting one if you're going to be, playing with this mod at all. And then placing them, you can place individual bits, so you can like build stuff with them, and you can place them in certain orientations as well. That's cool. Place, undo, redo. Neat. So if you wanted to place like a large cube, you would do that and then right click and it would use a bunch of bits. And it uses them out of the bag immediately, right? And then we can undo to undo it. Or if we wanted to, we could obviously use the chisel to break the bits. But what I want to do is a plane. And if I did that and put this here. Yeah, that didn't seem to work out so well, did it? Undo, undo. Block has changed. So there's totally a plane there. Okay, so maybe it just, yeah, that's not working as well as I would have hoped. So you're supposed to be able to do chisel and bits on these cables. I wasn't sure if it was gonna work, and it doesn't super duper look like it's working. Left click to place, sneak to ignore block grid, mouse wheel to cycle placement rotation. Cool. So it doesn't look like it's super duper. Yeah, there we go. That's what it's doing. So if I tried to place it there, yeah, no, it's just not rendering properly. I better do a quick backup. There we go. Quick backup. In the past, I've had crashing issues with this thing, so I'm just trying to make sure that it behaves a little bit. So I should be able to place this cover here. Maybe placing a block in front of it will do like a block update of some kind to make it render. No, it refuses to render. All right, let me find out if there's a good way I can get this cover. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to that, and then I'm gonna, where's my chisel? I should be able to do that. Nice, and that puts it, okay, all into the bit bag. For now, I'm just gonna put this bag and this chisel away because it doesn't seem to be super behaving. And instead of doing what I'm doing, what I'm gonna do is run this cable up the back for a sec and do this. Cool. Okay, so with that taken care of, we've now got this grid. The cable's existing outside, but that's really not the end of the world. I was really hoping I could get some kind of cover. What I'm gonna have to do is just do a little bit of research and figure out a good way to get a cover working. But for the most part, that's a good starting foundation. So we've got the basics of a refined storage system coming in. Next episode, I think I'll come back. We'll transfer all this stuff out of our storage crates here that we've got going on. And I'd like to start upping and upgrading our system of drawers. So we might wind up having like a drawer for iron and all of our metals and stuff and all of our dusts. Basically anything we have a lot of should probably be stored in a drawer. And we'll come back next episode and learn how to make and how to use the refined storage something or other in the world. Storage bus, external storage. Yeah, this one, external storage. This block you can hook up to a chest or crate or drawer system in your world, and basically the refined storage can access the items that are inside of it. So we'll play with that next episode. For now, Darwell20 signing off. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Oh right, it's episode 20, so what does that mean? You get a world download, so you'll have a world download that has a refined storage system. I'm gonna go back up my world right now and get it ready for you guys. Basically the way I do this is boom, 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 boom. Get a chest, throw it right in the center of my house, put all my junk in it, and now you guys have all my junk. Cool? So enjoy the world download for now. Oh, you know what else I could do? I'll just make sure that, yeah, that's fine. Take it easy.